Hey folks, see if you've ever had this problem. You're trying to eat a little healthier, but you're in the grocery store aisle, you're looking at packaging, nutrition labels, and they're so confusing, you don't know what's good for you and what's not. Well, this is why I love Thrive Market, my go-to online grocery store for getting all of my healthy essentials delivered, and I don't even have to leave my couch. Finding better options for the whole family is easy with Thrive Market's Healthy Swap Scanner. Just scan a product and it instantly recommends healthier swaps. This is how my wife and I found our new favorite snack, IQ bars. Sometimes I eat one in the morning with my coffee, sometimes just later on in between meals. They also have so many on-site filters that make it simple to shop by the needs of everyone in the family. Maybe you have someone who needs gluten-free food, somebody that has a peanut allergy. Well, no more scouring ingredient labels when you can just filter it all on Thrive Market. My wife and I often use the high protein filter to stock up on things like Sieti chips. Ready to make the switch? Go to thrivemarket.com/TCAT for 30% off your first order, plus a free $60 gift. That's THRIVE market.com/TCATT. thrivemarket.com/TCAT. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 335 of the True Crime All the Time podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
Hey, man, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well.
Good.
Having a good week.
Awesome.
Getting ready for Memorial Day weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Hope everybody has a good one.
Sure.
A lot of people have an extra day off. Let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Up Las Vegas,
What's going on up Las Vegas?
Michelle Stromer,
Hey, Michelle.
Alyssa Davis,
Well, appreciate that, Alyssa.
Brandon Van Nostran,
Ah, Van Nostron.
the doctor,
Yes.
Dolores Valdez,
Hey, Valdez.
Charlie Jansen,
What's going on? Charlie.
Samantha Bell jumped out at her highest level,
Hey, Samantha.
Amber Rogers,
Hey, Amber.
Cora Welsh,
What's going on, Cora?
Pittsburgh Sarah,
Hey, Pittsburgh.
Shannon Bristol,
What's going on, Shannon?
Tracy Hacklock Gents,
Hacklock. Yeah.
Tony Broussard,
Hey, Tony.
Frank Kelly,
What's going on, Frank?
and last but not least, Lauren Williams.
Hey, there's Lauren.
And then if we go back into the vault, this week we selected Julie Essen.
You're awesome, Julie. Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate the new Patreon support, the continued support very, very much. Gibbs, we have a lot out right now. We just recorded a brand new Patreon only episode.
We did.
On Richard Lee McCoy. You know, this is a guy who committed an armed robbery
Yeah.
at a liquor store and shot and killed the female clerk. But really, it's a story of the trial process. Some recordings that were ruled admissible against him.
Right.
His own words, kind of backing up what he did. You know, I found it to be a pretty interesting case.
So did I.
And then we have a new True Crime All the Time Unsolved episode out where we're headed to Australia.
We are.
To talk about the unsolved murder of Shirley Finn.
And that's a good one. You know, when you think about this murder took place in 75, but really didn't get any traction until 2014, 15, it makes you wonder what happened during that time.
Yeah, it was almost like 40 years before anything started to really move along.
But when it did, it really had a few years, like 3-4 years in a row there where it got a lot of interest and a lot of conversations occurred.
Yeah, so check that out. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time?
I am.
We are on to our part 2 and final part of Aaron Hernandez. In part 1, we discussed his early life and his football career, the murder of Odin Lloyd, and the investigation that led the police to identify Hernandez as a suspect. In part 2, we'll cover Aaron's 2 murder trials, his death, and the news that followed about his personal life and CTE. On December 12, 2014, a judge threw out as evidence text messages sent by Odin Lloyd and ruled that prosecutors could not tell jurors about the 2012 murders. The prosecution said that Aaron may have shown Odin Lloyd the location where the murders took place, which could give him a possible motive to kill Lloyd. The judge ruled there was no link between the crimes. The judge also ruled out testimony about the February 2013 shooting.
What's a win for the defense?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think the prosecution is saying, here's your motive. Lloyd knew about the 2012 murders, and so he had to be silenced. Aaron's first trial started on January 29th, 2015. ADA Patrick Bomberg presented surveillance videos, shell casings, DNA, and rental cars linking Aaron to the murder. He told the court, according to WGBH, he set up a meeting with Odin Lloyd, took steps to conceal his own role by using the phones of others. He drove for more than 2 hours, the only purpose for which was to get the victim into the secluded area. He orchestrated and participated in the killing.
That's a lot. That's a strong statement coming out.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about surveillance video, shell casings, DNA, and these rental cars that we talked about in episode 1, it does seem like a lot for the jury, right? And not good for Aaron Hernandez and the defense. The prosecution argued that Carlos Ortiz and Ernest Wallace were in the car that night and were what they called willing participants in Aaron's plan. Ernest Wallace was described as Aaron's right-hand man, according to the Boston Globe. Now, the prosecution didn't get really much into motive, right? The judge ruled against them on what we just talked about.
Right.
But they did tell the jury that Odin Lloyd saw some of his friends at the club in Boston that night, and Aaron left angry. A valet saw Aaron standing outside a hotel and shove a gun into his waistband and then cover it with his jacket before leaving with Odin Lloyd. The next day, Aaron texted Ortiz and Wallace and asked them to drive to Massachusetts. All right, not great when the valet sees you shoving a gun into your waistband, but what does it mean in that moment? Versus what does it mean when the person you're with, Odin Lloyd, later turns up dead?
Yeah, unless, the defense can say, well, he did this a lot for his own personal protection. He carried a gun.
Yeah. I mean, you can argue it both ways, but the fact remains that Odin Lloyd later turned up dead.
Sure.
So it doesn't look great. On June 16th, before Aaron met with Wallace and Ortiz, he and his fiancée went to a restaurant in Providence with their friends. Aaron later told People that he couldn't have been at the industrial park because he was in Providence, but surveillance footage showed that this wasn't true. Defense attorney Michael Fee said Aaron was targeted by the police, telling the court, as reported by WGBH, as soon as they found out that Aaron Hernandez, the celebrity football player, the New England Patriot, was a friend of Odin Lloyd's, Aaron never had a chance.
I mean, the defense can say what they want. At the end of the day, the assumption is that the police are just doing what they have to do based on the information provided, the evidence that is collected, not just targeting an individual because they don't like that individual.
Or they're a celebrity.
I mean, can it happen? Yes.
Oh, sure. Could police target someone? Sure.
Yeah.
But then how do you explain all the evidence? Does that then have to be made up, manufactured? Because the surveillance video shows what it shows.
Right.
The casings are going to, show what they show, the DNA, all that stuff. The defense argued that the two men partied together. Odin Lloyd was the one who hooked Aaron up with marijuana, and they were friends. Michael Fee asked the jury why Aaron would jeopardize his football career, saying, per the Boston Globe, he had the world at his feet. In June of 2013, Aaron was planning his future, not a murder. Now, I get that argument, and it's something that you and I bring up a lot. Why would somebody do something to jeopardize what they have? And most of the time, we're not talking about celebrities or, famous athletes. We're talking about people with a wife and kids.
Yeah.
Why would they go out and kill people, but they do. We know they
every
do.
day.
The defense didn't dispute that Aaron was with two men at the industrial park on the night of Odin Lloyd's murder, but they did argue that the prosecution didn't have any direct evidence that Aaron was the one who shot Lloyd or that he even wanted Lloyd dead. The defense pointed out that the murder weapon, a .45 caliber Glock pistol, was never found.
I mean, that's a good, strong point for the defense, right? You don't have the murder weapon. How do you know that the defendant killed him?
Yeah, you know what was used to shoot Odin Lloyd, but the defense is saying, how do you know that Aaron pulled the trigger?
Right. There was 4 people in that parking lot that night.
But Judge Susan Garsh told the jury that prosecutors didn't have to prove Aaron pulled the trigger to convict him of murder. All they had to do was show that he knowingly participated in the murder and intended to bring it to fruition, according to the Boston Globe.
Well, that's a lot easier to prove.
Yeah, because I don't know how you do prove that somebody actually pulled the trigger unless you have video of it.
Right.
Or you have the murder weapon and maybe that's the only person's prints that are on it. But without the murder weapon, I don't know how you prove it. On February 10th, 2015, the judge released a decision that Shayana Jenkins would be granted immunity and compelled to testify. On March 2nd, Judge Garsh reversed her ruling to block any mention of Odin Lloyd's text, but Lloyd's sister would not be able to talk about the nature of the text or the text where Lloyd mentioned being with someone from the NFL. So these are some big rulings.
They're huge.
And I do think you have a lot of these in different cases. I think I've said it before, right? What makes it in and what is excluded,
right,
is huge in really any trial, but especially a murder trial. And, some of these texts that we kind of detailed out in episode 1, while not conclusively incriminating, they definitely were kind of head scratchers.
Sure.
Now, I understand why the judge wouldn't want the one about someone being in the NFL. That's very, what do you call it?
Vague?
Well, no. It's pretty specific. There's only so many people in the NFL.
That's true. But I mean, it doesn't say it's him.
It doesn't say it's him, but the jury's going to put it together.
Yeah, it applies that it's probably him.
Yeah, and I don't think they want that type of bias, but she ruled that the other ones could come in.
I also wonder how this played out between the two women, being sisters, and the loyalty that one would have to Aaron, and obviously the other sister to Odin.
Yeah, it's and then you have their parents, their family. Yeah. Was it divided? Were most of the family on one side? I don't know. I didn't see much about it. Maybe we'll talk about it later. But on March 23rd, the jury learned about a $15,000 payment allegedly made to a man who admitted to shipping guns to Massachusetts before the murder. On April 11th, 2013, Aaron went to a Bank of America in Hermosa Beach, California, and deposited 3 checks worth $1.8 million.
Just a payday.
I mean, that's just a weekly trip to the bank for you, isn't it?
It's just every week.
I got 3 checks here. They total up about $2 million.
Yeah.
Give me back $100,000 for some walking cash.
Exactly.
A bank teller testified that she transferred $15,000 to an account for Oscar Hernandez, not related to Aaron, per Aaron's request. Oscar Hernandez pleaded guilty in federal court to conspiring to deliver firearms illegally, 3 counts of lying to a federal grand jury, witness tampering, and obstruction of justice. Authorities said that he transferred guns in a Toyota Camry to Massachusetts after he got the $15,000 from Aaron. These guns included a .22 caliber Jimenez pistol found near the crime scene and a rifle found in the Camry in Aaron's garage. The federal indictment didn't mention a .45 caliber gun. Okay, so I would say pretty damning.
I think so. It's not looking good.
According to the Boston Globe, prosecutors said in a court filing that Ernest Wallace vowed not to talk and urged Aaron to do the same. After they were both arrested, Wallace talked to Aaron's cousin, Tanya Singleton, from jail and said, "Tell him no matter what, Don't think I'm lying. I'll never go against the grain. You hear me? He was referencing singing to the police. Later that day, Tanya talked to Aaron and told him she wasn't going to say anything. Prosecutors wanted to introduce jailhouse phone conversations at trial. They argued that the calls showed that Aaron was able to obtain the silence of Tanya Singleton. Transcripts also stated that Aaron told another cousin to let him know when Tanya was running low on funds in jail. Okay. Is he, funneling money into her account because, he likes her, they're friends,
Yeah.
they're close.
Buying silence.
Or is he buying her silence?
Yeah. Well, he's got a lot of money to do a lot of buying of silence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
More than your average person, that's for sure.
Yeah.
By the time of the trial, Tanya Singleton had pleaded guilty to contempt of court, but was still facing a conspiracy charge. According to Oxygen, Tanya refused to testify in Aaron's case. She spent months in jail. Court documents state that she was accused of making overt attempts to hinder or mislead the investigation. She refused to testify before a grand jury about the Odin Lloyd shooting, even after she was offered immunity. She was charged with criminal contempt and later indicted on a charge of conspiracy to commit accessory after the fact. As we talked about in part 1, prosecutors allege that she drove Ernest Wallace out of the state and bought him a bus ticket. Tanya Singleton ended up pleading guilty to contempt, despite the fact that Aaron tried to buy her silence by offering her hundreds of thousands of dollars for her children. Like you said, he could afford it. I mean, when you deposit 3 checks totaling $1.8 million, okay, you got some money to play around with.
Sure. And probably had a lot more millions in the bank already.
Well, we mentioned that big $12.5 million signing bonus and the $40 million contract. Prosecutors said Aaron never set up the accounts. Aaron's team said there was no proof he influenced Tanya in any way. So if that's true, and he did try to buy her silence and offered her money, but then didn't go through with it. Okay, well, maybe that's the reason why she ended up caving.
Yeah, you got to follow through on a promise like that in times like this.
In 2014, a judge decided not to sentence Tanya to jail when local officials said that their facilities could not provide medical treatment for her. She was suffering from cancer at that time. She was sentenced to 2 years probation, and court ordered not to have contact with Aaron or anyone related to the cases. Tanya was also charged with contempt for refusing to testify in the 2012 shooting case. She pleaded guilty and received another 2-year probation sentence.
So she slapped with 4 years of probation. Not a big deal, really.
No, it's really not, especially when, you're battling cancer and you think about what the alternative could have been.
Yeah.
Prosecutors showed the jury checks that Shayana Jenkins wrote to housekeepers in April and May 2013. Her sister, Shania Jenkins, testified at trial that she visited Shayana and Aaron at their home the day after the murder. Shayana asked to borrow her car to get cash to pay the cleaners. The prosecution alleged that Shayana put the bag containing the murder weapon into her sister's car. Man, that is an allegation right there.
It is.
Now, Shania testified that Shayana was secretive and wasn't acting normally that day. Shayana received text messages and went to the basement with a black garbage bag. Prosecutors said that she had just received texts from Aaron asking her to remove a box from the basement. Shayana Jenkins testified on March 27, 2015, outside of the presence of the jury. She testified that on the night of June 17th, she drove Aaron to the police station. Aaron instructed her to meet Ernest Wallace and give him money. She met him in a parking lot in East Greenwich, Rhode Island, and withdrew $500 from a nearby bank. She said she wasn't sure why she was asked to do this. On her way home, she received calls from Aaron, her mom, and sister. Reports indicated that during one of these calls, Shania told Shayana that Odin had been found. Shayana also testified on March 30th. She said that Aaron called her on June 18th, 2013, and told her to remove a box from their storage room According to CNN, a text from Aaron to her read, "Go in back of the screen and movie room when you get home, and there is a box, just in case you were looking for it. Remember how you ruined the big TV. Was just thinking about that. LOL, wink, wink. Love you. Talk to you later. K."
So you got to kind of decipher that message between the two of them.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't come out and say, "Go get the box with the guns in it," or, anything like that. She said she never saw what was inside the box, and Aaron never told her what was inside. Prosecutors believe this box contained the murder weapon. However, the defense said it may have held marijuana and referenced Shayanna's testimony about the smell and weight of the box. She testified that she put the box and clothing inside a garbage bag. She did this, in her words, so nothing was exposed. She then drove around to search for a dumpster. The prosecutor asked her about the fact that she couldn't remember where the dumpster was. She replied that she was stressed after Lloyd's murder.
Yeah, I mean, her sister's boyfriend was just killed, probably freaking out,
You would think so.
Yeah.
You would think so. But I want to go back to, kind of this testimony. If you're a juror, what does it all mean? Like the text messages to me were cryptic.
They were.
She's basically saying that Aaron asked me to do a series of things.
Yeah.
But what does that series of things actually mean? What was the money for that she gave Ernest Wallace? What was in the box? What's in the box?
What's in the box? Well, I think the prosecution's trying to say she's paying Ernest for his role. She's disposing of the gun or guns. But the defense is saying, no, she's just getting rid of a box that she was asked to get rid of. Maybe it had marijuana in it. And she's just helping out a friend. Nothing more, nothing less.
But bank records show that during the drive, Shayanna bought baby supplies and withdrew $800 from an ATM. She said she may have used the money to pay house cleaners or buy childcare products. She also said that Aaron denied killing Odin Lloyd when she asked if he did it. What's he going to say? "Oh yeah, I did that."
Well, of course.
So I think they're trying, you can see they're trying to angle in on this cleaning of the house.
Right.
That's kind of a big deal. Alexander Bradley testified on April 1st. At this time, Bradley was in custody in Connecticut, awaiting trial on unrelated gun charges. Bradley fired shots at a nightclub in Hartford in 2014. He was not allowed to testify about the 2013 shooting. Bradley testified that when he and Aaron traveled to Florida in February 2013, a man passed a gun to Aaron in their hotel room, and it looked like a Glock. Aaron held the gun for a couple of minutes, then put it on a chair. Several other men were in the hotel room, including Oscar Hernandez, who was mentioned earlier at trial. Bradley testified that he saw a gun in a box in Aaron's basement in North Attleboro, but it was not a Glock. Defense attorney Charles Rankin tried to cast doubt on Bradley's credibility. Bradley didn't mention seeing Aaron with a gun in Florida when he was questioned in December, but the prosecutor pointed out that he talked about it at an earlier grand jury appearance. Rankin asked Bradley if he first mentioned seeing Oscar Hernandez in December. Bradley answered, "If that's what the record shows, then yes," and said that he saw a picture of Oscar in the news and it refreshed his memory.
Okay.
And I'll tell you, man, the part of a trial that I really get into is, number one, the evidence and what that evidence really means. But number two are, the witnesses who say they saw this or they heard this.
Right.
And the other side trying to break them down and badger them or, poke holes in them. To me, all of that stuff is fascinating. Records also showed that Bradley told investigators in December that he sold marijuana to Aaron, but in a deposition a week later, he said he had never been his provider.
So he's flip-flopping.
Yeah, and I think that's something as the defense team that you really want to point out. If somebody is inconsistent with their statements, what does that mean to the jury? How much of what they say can they rely on or believe? Bradley conceded that he rejected a plea deal for his charges in September and later said in a jailhouse phone call that he hoped the deal would improve. So this was something that the defense pointed out,
Right.
because I think, if I'm a juror, I'm having to question his motives for the things that he's saying. Is it because he's trying to get out of this other charge and he wants this deal to be, sweeter? Don't let allergy season slow you down. Get common allergy meds for as little as $15 with GoodRx. So you and your family, pets included, can stop allergy symptoms before they start. GoodRx is free and easy to use. Just search for your prescription on the website or the app, compare prices, and get a free coupon to show your pharmacist. Save at over 70,000 local pharmacies nationwide, including Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, Publix, Kroger, and many more. Check GoodRx before every trip to the pharmacy to save up to 80% on both brand and generic medications. And did you know GoodRx rewards you for saving money too? Join GoodRx Rewards today and earn points every time you use a coupon. Remember, GoodRx is not insurance, but works whether you have insurance or not. And it could be your insurance copay price. I've been using GoodRx for years, and I can't tell you how many times I have saved money even with my insurance. Stop allergies before they start and save big on allergy medications this season with GoodRx. Go to goodrx.com/TCAT. That's goodrx.com/TCATT. Once the temps start rising, I realized I was back in the same worn out rotation. Same tank, same shorts, same everything. So I gave my daily uniform an upgrade with Quince. Their pieces are easy, elevated, and somehow make me feel more put together without even trying. Like their 100% European linen shorts and dresses from $30. Luxe swimwear, Italian leather platform sandals, and so much more. The best part, everything with Quince is priced 50 to 80% less than what you'd find at similar brands. By working directly with top artisans and cutting out the middleman, Quince gives you luxury without the markup. And Quince only works with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices and premium fabrics and finishes. I'm getting ready to stock up on shorts for summer from Quince, and I know they're going to be amazing because everything I've ordered has been of the highest quality, and the prices are amazing. Treat your closet to a little summer glow up with Quince. Go to quince.com/TCAT for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/TCATT to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/TCAT. Closing arguments took place on April 7th. ADA William McCauley told the jury that Aaron planned the murder and shot Odin Lloyd, which was the first time they had actually named Aaron as the shooter. They argued that Aaron thought he could get away with murder and felt like Odin had disrespected him.
Well, we know he had an issue with people disrespecting him.
Big time.
Yeah.
Defense attorney James Sultan asked the jury to consider that the shooting was a spontaneous act committed by Wallace or Ortiz. Aaron was a witness and failed to call the police. According to the Boston Globe, Sultan told the jury, did he make all the right decisions? Did he make all the right choices? He was a 23-year-old kid who witnessed something, a shocking killing, committed by somebody he knew. He really didn't know what to do.
I keep forgetting that he was just 23.
Yeah, only 23 years old.
Yeah, because, he looked older.
He did. Even though he did kind of have a baby face a little bit.
Yeah.
He did look a little older. Plus, you think, he's in the NFL, he's making all this money, but yeah, he was only 23 years old. Now, does that mean that he didn't know right from wrong? Obviously not. I know that's not what you're saying.
Yeah, he's an adult. He knows right from wrong.
But you can really see what the defense is trying to do. Did the prosecution prove that Aaron was the shooter? And they're trying to plant in the jury's mind that he wasn't the shooter. He was there. He saw it go down. And really his only crime was failing to alert the police.
Yeah.
The defense tried to show that investigators were sloppy and prosecutors failed to test evidence that could undermine their theory. Sultan pointed out how detectives climbed into a dumpster rather than waiting for CSIs and showed the jury surveillance footage of Aaron returning to his home with Wallace and Ortiz. He said Aaron was holding an iPad in this footage, not a gun, when Aaron was seen with a gun minutes later coming out of the basement. Sultan suggested he had the gun because he was scared of Wallace and Ortiz. And that's something that you have to try to address. There is video footage of him holding a gun.
Right.
You got to tell the jury why you think that is.
Instead of allowing the prosecution to drive that narrative.
Aaron Hernandez was convicted of first-degree murder. On April 15th, 2015, he received a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. During the sentencing hearing, Odin Lloyd's mother, Ursula Ward, said that she forgave Aaron and his alleged accomplices. She said, "I forgive the hands of the people who had a hand in my son's murder, either before or after." And I know I've said it before, but I am always in awe of these people who have the ability to forgive someone who murdered their child. Because I'm telling you right now, I just don't think I could do it.
I think it'd be very difficult to do that. Very difficult.
On May 11, 2015, Aaron Hernandez was charged with intimidating a witness. He was accused of shooting a witness on February 13th, 2013, because the victim said something about the 2012 shooting. The man wasn't identified in Aaron's charges, but as we know, Alexander Bradley filed a lawsuit against Aaron, alleging that Aaron shot him in the face on February 13th after they left a strip club in Miami. We talked about that in episode 1. Not too hard to kind of put those, two together.
Right.
On May 15th, 2015, the perjury charge was dropped against Shayana Jenkins due to her testimony at trial. On August 27th, prosecutors said in a court filing that Tanya Singleton's cancer had progressed and they would not prosecute her for accessory. She died from cancer in October 2015. So, less than a couple of months after they came out and said they weren't going to prosecute her. The lawsuit against Aaron by Alexander Bradley was settled in February 2016. The terms were not released. On May 12th, 2016, Ernest Wallace was acquitted of murder, but convicted of accessory after the fact to murder. Wallace was sentenced to 4.5 to 7 years in prison with credit for time served.
But he was happy about that. He escaped a long sentence.
Yeah. I mean, you're never happy about having to go to prison, but 4.5 years versus life.
Big difference.
That is a very big difference. Prosecutors said that Wallace was motivated to help Aaron because he often slept in a guest room in Aaron's mansion. Wallace's attorney said he never contested. He was at the crime scene, but did contest that he participated in the murder. On June 27th of that year, Carlos Ortiz pleaded guilty to being an accessory after the fact. He told the judge that the only people who got out of the car on the night of the shooting were Aaron Hernandez and Odin Lloyd. As part of his plea deal, he would serve less than 7 years.
So pretty much the same deal.
Yeah, pretty similar to what Ernest Wallace got. But it is interesting that you have these two individuals both saying, yeah, we were there.
Right.
And pretty much saying that it was Aaron.
Yeah.
Now, is that because that's the truth, or is that because they were looking to save themselves?
Could be. But at the end of the day, they both got probably what they were hoping for.
Opening statements in Aaron's second murder trial began on March 1st, 2017. One of Aaron's attorneys was Jose Baez, who represented Casey Anthony at her trial. So this is the trial for the two murders of Daniel de Abreu and Safiro Furtado. Prosecutors argued that Aaron taunted both victims before shooting them by saying, "Yo, what's up now?" followed by a racial slur. The shooting occurred after Daniel bumped into Aaron at a nightclub and spilled a drink. After the shooting, Aaron and Alexander Bradley hid the vehicle and possible evidence. The defense argued that Alexander Bradley shot the two men over a drug sale. They also told the jury that Bradley could not be trusted as a witness.
Well, I can get why maybe they can't trust Bradley. why they're saying that, right? I mean, Bradley was also suing or had sued Aaron at the time.
You mean after he shot him in the face?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see a trend here. And it's what you see in a lot of trials. Who else can we point the finger at? It's got to be somebody.
Yeah, you want the heat off you and put it on somebody else.
So anybody else that says they were there, well, let's at least plant it in the jury's mind that how do you know it wasn't them?
And if I remember right, I think one of the murder victims was in law enforcement, if not both.
Yeah, one was for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know if a drug sale went bad.
Alexander Bradley's testimony started on March 20th, 2017. The following information comes from CNN. Bradley testified that he and Aaron were best friends, and he often gave Aaron marijuana. On July 15th, 2012, they went to the Boston nightclub called Cure. Before they left, Aaron took a revolver and put it under the hood of his Toyota 4Runner. While at the club, Daniel De Abreu bumped into Aaron and spilled some of his drink on him. De Abreu smirked at Aaron and then laughed without apologizing. Aaron became angry. Bradley testified, "I knew something was brewing. He was just agitated, and I just knew what would happen." They left the club and went to a bar across the street. They saw De Abreu with his friends, and they thought they were being followed, so they left. When they got back to the vehicle, Aaron popped the hood and took out the gun. Bradley drove around the club a few times until Aaron saw a BMW with De Abreu and other men inside. Aaron urged Bradley to follow. Bradley drove up next to the BMW at a red light. Aaron took out the gun and told Bradley to roll his window down and lean back. He then leaned over Bradley, stuck the gun out the window, and yelled, "Yo." No one reacted, so Aaron yelled, "Yo," again. Then he said, "What's up now?" followed by the racial slur, and fired 5 shots into the vehicle. Bradley said he drove away. They were panicked and in a state of shock. Aaron told Bradley, "I got one in the head and one in the chest."
The 2 shots that killed the men.
Now, this is Bradley's version of events, right? He's testifying to this in court. One thing that really kind of jumped out at me is how loud that gun must have been in that car. I know he had it maybe a little bit out the window, but he's leaning over. I don't know how far out he was. He's essentially, according to this, firing the gun like right in front of Alexander Bradley. That would have been super loud. Bradley said that Aaron wiped the gun with his shirt, then threw it and the shells out the window. He told Bradley not to tell anyone. They drove to Bradley's girlfriend's house. Aaron watched news coverage of the shooting. Tanya Singleton then arrived, and Aaron told her to take care of the 4Runner. The vehicle was later found at her house. Bradley said that Aaron became very paranoid after the shooting. He didn't allow his friends to have their iPhones around him, and he thought that helicopters were following him.
Kind of like that one movie with Ray
Liotta?
Yeah. Remember when he's making up all that...
Goodfellas? You mean that one movie?
Was that Goodfellas?
Called Goodfellas?
Yeah.
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 Towards the end where he's making up the drugs.
Yeah.
And
he thinks like the police were following, but
because they are.
They were.
They really were. Yeah, that one movie. Called Goodfellas.
Yeah.
One of the best movies of all time.
Right. You're a funny guy.
In February 2013, they went on a trip to South Florida to attend a Super Bowl party. At a bar, Aaron pointed out some men he thought looked like police officers. Bradley told him, "If they are, it's because of the stupid shit you did up in Boston." Aaron became upset and walked away. Later that night, they rode home together. There were other passengers in the vehicle, and they got into a heated argument. But Bradley fell asleep in the car. He said when he woke up, Aaron had a gun in his face. He shot Bradley, then pulled him out of the car and left him to die.
Kind of friend you don't want to have.
So there's 2 things here for me. Number one, obviously this guy got shot in the face.
Right.
That's pretty easy to corroborate. Now, whether it was Aaron who did it, that's a little tougher. But the second thing is, if this all went down the way that Bradley said it did, it's just another example of Aaron's kind of agitation, revenge factor,
Short fuse,
paranoia, I mean, all that stuff. At the time it happened, Bradley told a man who came to help him that 2 black men shot him. He refused to cooperate with detectives. He didn't want to cooperate with the police at all because he wanted to make it even. That's what he said. After Bradley recovered, he called Aaron. And he said Aaron seemed surprised he was still alive.
Yeah, well, he left him on the side of the road for dead.
So a man shoots you in the face, a man that you've described as your best friend. You don't want to rat him out.
Right.
And then after you recover, you call him on the phone. Like, hey, what's going on, man?
Yeah, what's happening?
Prosecutors presented texts between the 2 men. Bradley promised not to tell lawyers or the police and asked Aaron to pay him. Aaron denied doing anything wrong, saying, I love you and you're not going to frame me for some bread. When Bradley told Aaron he was going to sue him, Aaron texted, if you ever got me in trouble or ruined my life for something I didn't do, I don't even want to get back at you, but you will pay. I mean, I get what it means, but I don't want to get back at you, but you will pay.
I think it's a subtle way of saying,
don't do this or else.
Yep.
So, if Aaron really did do what he's alleged to have done, pretty smart, right? Not to come out and say it in a text message. Right. We've seen a lot of dumb criminals do something like that. But he is essentially threatening this guy.
Sure he is.
Aaron's tattoos were an important point made by the prosecution at trial. He had tattoos of a revolver and a tattoo of a kind of a head-on view of a gun. Next to the tattoos was the text, God forgives. Now, a lot of people have tattoos. A lot of people have strange tattoos.
Sure.
Or maybe they are the only ones that know what they mean. How do you make something out of a tattoo? But I think the prosecution is trying. They're basically saying he got these tattoos because he was a shooter.
Yeah.
And the God forgives is right next to it.
Meaning it's okay if you murder, don't worry, God forgives you.
Yeah, maybe. I kind of took it as God forgives, but I don't. I think you could look at it that way too.
That's a good point too, yeah.
I don't know. That's, they're so subjective. Tattoos, a lot of tattoos are. You don't really know what they mean. Detective Paul McIsaac testified that investigators focused on Aaron's tattoos because of a photo of him during the February 2012 Super Bowl didn't show the tattoo of the revolver. Investigators appealed for the artist to come forward in 2014. California tattoo artist David Nelson testified that in spring 2013, Aaron asked for an image of a revolver with 5 bullets visible in the cylinder and 1 cylinder empty, as well as the God Forgives tattoo, as well as handgun muzzles and a spent shell casing. Authorities said Aaron fired 5 shots from a revolver into the car. So they are really trying to tie this tattoo.
They sure are.
But the timing is suspect, and you can see how they would try to make a case. There's 5 bullets. He fired 5 shots. During closing arguments, prosecutor Patrick Hagan told the court that Alexander Bradley was being honest because he stuck to his story even when contradicted by some evidence. Hagan also emphasized Aaron's tattoo, saying, this is not random. This is not art. That's evidence. That is a confession. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It's definitely going to be up to the jury.
Sure, it's how you interpret it.
Prosecutors also brought up that they found the vehicle used that night hidden in Aaron's cousin's home. The murder weapon was found with a woman connected to Aaron. Cell phone experts also said that Aaron's phone was near the site of the shooting. So they had some really good evidence.
Yeah, they did.
And we talked about some of this in episode 1. Aaron's attorney, Jose Baez, questioned Bradley's credibility and said that the immunity agreement was the deal of the century. That's the word he used.
I don't know if it's a deal of the century, but he had a good deal.
Well, I think if you're the defense attorney, you really want to point out to the jury that this man got a deal. So maybe you want to question why he's saying what he's saying.
Anything you can do to put some doubt in their mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Baez brought up Bradley's correspondence with Aaron after the 2013 shooting. Bradley threatened to kill Aaron, bragged about his personal weapons, and said he had wolves who would help him commit acts of violence. Okay, these guys are both saying some pretty odd things to each other as, air quote, best friends.
Yeah, love you, brother.
But I will kill you.
But I will kill you.
And wolves was in quotation marks, so I'm assuming that didn't mean actual wolves, but...
I think maybe what he called his posse?
Oh, like that one guy from The Hangover and his wolf pack?
Yeah, his wolf pack.
Have one more in the wolf pack? You know, even the smallest step forward can make a big difference in your financial future. When you open a Chime checking account, you're one step closer to a better financial future with no maintenance fees, fee-free overdraft up to $200, or getting paid up to 2 days early with direct deposit. Making progress has never been easier. I think we've all been in that position where we've had an overdraft. Well, with Chime, you can overdraft up to $200 with no fees. That's amazing. And they have over 50,000 fee-free ATMs. Make progress towards a better financial future with Chime. Open your account in 2 minutes at chime.com/TCAT. That's chime.com/TCATT. Chime feels like progress. Banking services and debit card provided by the Bancorp Bank N.A. or Stride Bank N.A., members FDIC. Spot me eligibility requirements and overdraft limits apply. Fees apply at out-of-network ATMs. MyPay eligibility requirements apply. Credit limits range from $20 to $500. $2 fee applies to get funds instantly. Crime checking account required. Go to chime.com/disclosures for details. True Crime All the Time is sponsored by BetterHelp. You know, folks, therapy can feel like a big investment, but let's think about the state of your mind. It's just as important as your physical health. Traditional in-person therapy can cost anywhere from $100 to $250 per session, which adds up really fast. But with BetterHelp Online Therapy, you can save, on average, up to 50% per session. With BetterHelp, you pay a flat fee for weekly sessions, saving you big on cost and time. And you get quality care at a price that makes sense and can help you with anything from anxiety to everyday stress. Your mental health is worth it, and now it's within reach. I've used the BetterHelp service for years, and I love the fact that, I can connect with a therapist in a comfortable spot in my home on my laptop. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. Your well-being is worth it. Visit BetterHelp.com/TCAT today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/TCATT. Baez also brought up a text Bradley sent to his lawyer in July 2013 about being charged with perjury. Bradley asked if he could be charged with perjury for telling a grand jury the truth about not being able to recall who shot me. And you could see why, maybe the jury would have a little bit of an issue with this guy Bradley's credibility. When you say at a certain point, you don't know who shot you. At one point, he said it was 2 black men.
Right.
And then later on, you are saying it's Aaron Hernandez, but you have this deal.
Yeah, the problem with not telling the truth and not being honest right up front and changing your story, it takes credibility away.
It does. It does. But does it take it all away? And that's what the jury has to weigh. On April 14th, 2017, Aaron Hernandez was acquitted on all charges, excluding illegal possession of a firearm. Aaron had been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of attempted murder, assault and battery with a dangerous weapon, unlawful possession of a firearm, and witness intimidation. He was sentenced to 4 to 5 years in prison for illegal possession of a firearm. So he's convicted of the murder of Odin Lloyd, but acquitted of the murders of De Abreu and Furtado. And I'm actually not all that surprised based on what we've talked about. You have Bradley, who really seems as though he was the star witness.
Right.
And his credibility is in question. You've got some things that don't look great.
No.
The cell phone information, this truck is found at a relative's home. But what does it conclusively prove? And at the end of the day, the jury just did not feel as though the prosecution met their burden. Suffolk County DA Daniel Conley said that De Abreu and Furtado's families were upset by the defense's portrayal of the victims as gangbangers and drug dealers. He said, according to AP News, these were two hardworking, humble Cape Verdean immigrants. It was unnecessary and it was wrong and it shouldn't have been done. It's something that you and I probably don't talk about enough. The defense, in trying to, get their client out from under their charges, a lot of times end up painting the victims in a very bad light. And here, this guy's saying it just wasn't true and they shouldn't have done that.
But that's what they do sometimes, right?
They're trying to win.
Yeah, it's all about winning.
And I'm not saying that makes it right, but that's the long and the short of it. They will do whatever they have to do and can do legally to try to win the case.
That's what they get paid to do. I think when your life is on the line, you're not going to tell the attorney, say, hey, I don't want to go to prison, but make sure you play nice.
Yeah.
And don't do anything, just go out there and do the best you can within the restrictions of the law. But don't make the victims look bad.
Yeah, I think as a defendant facing life in prison or possibly even the death penalty, you don't care about that.
No. You're saying, save my ass, please.
Yes. Conley said that they wouldn't prosecute Alexander Bradley because they believe that Aaron Hernandez was correctly charged. Well, I don't know how they could turn around and prosecute Bradley after he was their star witness against Aaron Hernandez. His attorney would have had a field day with that.
Of course.
On April 19th, 2017, Aaron Hernandez was found hanged in his prison cell at the Sousa Baranowski Correctional Center in Shirley, Massachusetts. WBUR obtained a statement from Christopher Fallon of the Massachusetts Department of Corrections. It read, Mr. Hernandez hanged himself utilizing a bed sheet that he attached to his cell window. Mr. Hernandez also attempted to block his door from the inside by jamming the door with various items. Aaron was found by officers at 3:05 a.m. They tried to save his life. He was transported to a hospital and was pronounced dead at 4:07 a.m. Newsweek reported that Aaron wrote 3 notes before he died. One to Shauna, one to his daughter, and one to an inmate / alleged prison boyfriend. Aaron put the notes next to a Bible. The Bible was opened to John 3:16. Aaron also wrote this verse on his forehead and made markings with red ink on his hands and feet.
Well, clearly he didn't want to spend the rest of his life in prison.
No, I think that's pretty safe to say. After Aaron's death, Jose Baez released a statement via the Boston Herald. It read, the family and legal team is shocked and surprised at the news of Aaron's death. There were no conversations or correspondence from Aaron to his family or legal team that would have indicated anything like this was possible. Aaron was looking forward to an opportunity for a second chance to prove his innocence. Those who love and care about him are heartbroken and determined to find the truth surrounding his untimely death. We request that authorities conduct a transparent and thorough investigation. So, it sounds to me like the family and maybe the attorney, but at least through the attorney, is saying, we're not sure he took his life. There might have been something else going on there.
Well, sometimes foul play does occur inside the prison.
And it can be made to look like a suicide.
Sure.
Now, you're going to have to explain how somebody then exited the door and jammed it from the inside. And that's going to be pretty hard to do. Not saying it's impossible, but pretty hard to do. Aaron's family asked that his brain be studied at the CTE Center at Boston University. The state medical examiner wanted to study Aaron's brain. Jose Baez claimed in a press conference that the ME was illegally holding Aaron's brain. The DA released Aaron's brain after this press conference. Soon after Aaron's death, Newsweek and the Daily Mail released reports that Aaron Hernandez was bisexual, but didn't want people to know he had a male lover. However, according to Newsweek, Odin Lloyd knew about this. The police had even looked into the possibility that this was a motive for his murder. As we mentioned in episode 1, Aaron allegedly had an intimate relationship with a former high school classmate. This classmate testified in front of a grand jury. Shortly before he was arrested, Aaron moved money into 3 accounts, one for his fiance, one for his daughter, and one for this individual. His account had more money than the accounts for his fiance and his daughter.
Well, that says a lot.
It says either he really cared about this guy.
Yeah.
Or he didn't want this guy to talk. I think you can look at it in one of 2 ways.
Sure. But to leave your daughter a fraction of what you gave this man?
It means something.
It sure does.
According to Newsweek, Aaron's alleged relationship with his former high school classmate was at the center of the Odin Lloyd investigation. Ernest Wallace told detectives that Odin Lloyd called Aaron a smoocher, which they took as a gay slur. Ernest Wallace was also recorded telling Tanya Singleton in a jailhouse visit that he wouldn't have helped Aaron get rid of the murder weapon if he had known Aaron was a limp wrist. And that's also, some type of gay slur.
Yeah.
On April 24th, 2017, a judge ordered that copies of Aaron's notes be turned over to his family, but the DA's office could redact information to protect the investigation. Newsweek reported on April 24th that 2 law enforcement sources said that Aaron tested positive for K2, a synthetic form of marijuana, which led to a state police raid at the correctional center. Inmates told investigators that Aaron may have been high on the morning he died. You ever heard of K2?
I have not, besides the mountain I climbed.
Yeah, me neither. I'm sure there's a lot of drugs that I've never heard of, but I'm not actually sure what synthetic marijuana is.
I'm not sure either.
Now, we've probably talked about K2 in a previous episode,
Yeah.
and just don't even remember. A lawyer for Kyle Kennedy, an inmate at the prison, confirmed that his client was the recipient of one of Aaron's notes, but neither he nor his client had seen the letter. Aaron and Kennedy didn't share a cell, but Kennedy was known as Aaron's prison boyfriend. This was according to Newsweek. Kyle Kennedy was 22 years old at that time and was convicted of armed robbery. On April 25th, Aaron's lawyers formally asked the court to dismiss his first-degree murder conviction under the Massachusetts legal principle abatement ab initio, which stated that if a person had not exhausted all their appeals when they died, their conviction can be vacated.
Okay.
Yeah, I never heard of that. According to CBS Sports, in a statement on April 25th, Jose Baez said, rumors of letters to a gay lover in or out of prison are false. These are malicious leaks used to tarnish someone who is dead. The DA's office would not confirm the addressee of the third letter. At a press conference on April 26th, the attorney for Kyle Kennedy said that Aaron knew Kennedy before he went to prison, and that Aaron wrote a note hinting at suicidal thoughts 3 weeks before his death. The note said, "I think I'm going to hang it up, LOL." According to Newsweek, Kennedy's attorney Lawrence Army did not deny that multiple law enforcement sources characterized Kennedy as Aaron's prison boyfriend. Army confirmed that the 2 men requested to share a cell. He did say that he was not at liberty to discuss the nature of the relationship and that his client would talk about it himself. Army said the 2 men knew each other through correspondence before Kennedy went to prison. He said their relationship was well known and discussed in letters between them, some of which were coded. Hernandez also sent letters to Kennedy's father and siblings.
Well, if anything, they were friends, it sounds like.
Yeah. Friends at least, maybe something more. I don't know, but does it really matter?
Not really.
In the grand scheme of things, unless the motive for the murder or one of the motives for the murder was that Odin Lloyd knew this about Aaron and Aaron was afraid he was going to tell someone.
Right.
That's the only reason that it's even relevant and that we're bringing it up. On May 9th, 2017, a judge ruled that Aaron's murder conviction could be erased because he died before his appeal was heard. Judge Susan Garsh said she was compelled to follow the legal doctrine. The prosecution argued that Aaron should not be able to accomplish in death what he could not accomplish in life. This according to the LA Times. But Aaron's appellate attorney told the judge that the highest court in the state applied the doctrine without exception, even in suicide cases. The prosecution appealed this decision. How do you feel about that?
I mean, the law was the law. If that's what the law states.
No, I'm asking you how you feel about the law.
I don't think it's a great law.
I don't either. I don't feel as though you should automatically have your murder conviction quashed because you die. Now, I get it. You haven't exhausted all your appeals.
Right.
But to just do it automatically. I mean, what are you saying to the family of the victim or victims? That now no one is responsible for the murder?
Yeah, how's that work?
Even though a jury convicted this man? Yeah. I'm not sure I'm crazy about that. In May 2017, Cheyenne Jenkins' interview with Dr. Phil was aired on TV. She denied rumors that Aaron was gay. She said that defense lawyers told her about these rumors. She asked Aaron if it was true, and he said no. She said, I had no indication or any feeling that he was gay. He was very much a man to me. I don't know where this came from. She indicated that Aaron was concerned about rumors while in prison, but she didn't know if he thought it would be made public. She also said that she didn't believe Aaron ended his own life. There were peculiarities in his note to her, and the handwriting was similar to Aaron's handwriting, but she felt like it could be easily duplicated.
I think there's going to be conspiracy theories.
There always is.
Yeah.
There always, especially when someone famous dies.
Exactly.
You always have someone, who has a conspiracy theory, but here's, someone in his life. I get it. Most people don't want to believe that this person that they knew they loved would end their life. There has to be something else to it. Shiana said that there was no letter for Kyle Kennedy and that one of the letters was addressed to Aaron's lawyers. She also said that she had never heard of Kennedy and didn't know who he was. So, I don't know what you make of all that. If Aaron was bisexual, is it inconceivable that that's a part of his life that he hid from her?
Oh, absolutely. He could have hid it from her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of people might do. And you talked earlier about Cheyenne and her sister. According to the Daily Mail, she lost her relationship with her younger sister, Shania, because she continued to support Aaron. She also took Aaron's last name, despite the fact that they never got married.
Well, I can see the sister being really upset. Hey, the jury found him guilty. How can you stand by him at this point? Why aren't you supporting me?
Tough.
Yeah.
Tough. I see both sides of it, but I definitely see the sister's point of view. Now, I think Shiana doesn't believe he's guilty.
No, she did. Well, yeah.
So that's part of it. That's part of the reason why she's standing by him. In 2020, a source told People that even though Aaron was attracted to men, his relationship with Shiana was genuine, and he thought of her as his soulmate. She previously said she was unaware of Aaron's sexuality, but the source said they believed she knew he was attracted to men, but she was still devoted to him.
I think she was extremely devoted to him.
Well, a person could be easily.
Yeah.
They could absolutely know that their partner is either bisexual or even attracted to the same sex, and it'd be okay with them.
Yeah.
Or they still, stay in the relationship and it continues to go. So none of that would surprise me. In September 2017, media outlets reported that Aaron had a severe case of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE. A posthumous exam showed that Aaron's brain had so much damage that it was similar to football players in their 60s. Aaron was only 27 years old when he died, and he hadn't played football in a few years. A lawyer for Aaron's family said in their announcement that it was the most severe case they had ever seen in someone of Aaron's age.
Well, he hit hard. He was hit hard. So that's the kind of game he played. So he took that abuse, and these scans are showing that.
And it affected his brain for sure. According to researchers at Boston University, CTE has been found in over 100 former NFL players. And I think I talked about it in the last episode, but there have been a number of high-profile NFL players who, after retirement, have taken their own lives. And it's later come out that they had CTE. And the thought is that, it had something to do with the way they were feeling and them ultimately ending their lives.
Yeah.
Aaron's estate filed a lawsuit against the NFL and the Patriots, seeking damages for Aaron's daughter for the loss of her father. The suit alleged that the NFL and team didn't do enough to protect Aaron from repeated head hits.
Even if they win that, I'm not sure how Odin's family would respond to that. I think they would want to sue the estate
for that money.
For damages for what occurred to him.
Yeah. Dr. Ann McKee, who directs research on CTE at Boston University, announced her findings at a medical conference in November 2017. She said that Aaron had stage 3 CTE, and her team had never seen such severe damage in a brain younger than age 46. So this is really saying something.
Yeah.
And he was like half that age, probably, when he suffered that. I know he's 27 when he died,
right,
but he was 23 kind of in the prime and probably had already suffered that damage. According to the Boston Globe, McKee said, "We can't take the pathology and explain the behavior, but we can say collectively that individuals with CTE of this severity have difficulty with impulse control, decision-making, aggression, often emotional volatility, and rage behavior."
I think now most people believe that this is a very real thing and it impacts the players. I think, regarding the lawsuit, I think if I was the NFL or in the New England Patriots, I could easily say, look, he might have had that damage before he ever came to us. I don't know how you can put that solely on us. This could have happened when he was in high school, could have happened when he was in college.
Yeah, absolutely. I get what you're saying. But that's not the first lawsuit against the NFL
not at
for, this type of thing.
It won't be the last.
It won't be the last either. According to the New York Times, Aaron's brain appeared normal when the researchers first looked at it, but when they cut it into half-inch sections, they found brain atrophy and frontal lobe damage. We've talked about frontal lobe damage quite a bit.
Sure we have.
On TCAT. Now, it's not normally from football-related injuries, but it is head trauma, accidents, or, things of that sort. McKee also said that Aaron was born with a genetic marker associated with neurodegenerative diseases, which could have contributed to the CTE.
Which might explain why it was more rapid in him than most people his age.
Yeah, why they'd never seen it so bad in somebody so young. On March 13th, 2019, Aaron's murder conviction was reinstated by the Supreme Judicial Court in Massachusetts. The court found the rule that erased the conviction to be outdated and no longer consonant with the circumstances of contemporary life. According to the LA Times, the court ordered that the practice be abolished for future cases. And, I have to agree with that. I think you and I both had an issue.
We did.
With that just being across the board, not even case by case. It was just kind of unilaterally done. In February 2019, a federal judge dismissed the suit brought by Aaron's family against the NFL. They were seeking $20 million in damages. The U.S. district judge was overseeing the class action settlement aimed at compensating former NFL players for concussion-related brain injuries. The plaintiff argued that the lawsuit should be allowed to proceed outside the class action settlement, but the judge rejected that argument. In July 2019, the wrongful death lawsuit brought by the families of De Abreu and Furtado was settled. The terms were not disclosed. Aaron's estate also settled with Odin Lloyd's family. And, I always find that interesting. when a person is acquitted of a murder, but yet they end up, let's say, in a civil trial being found guilty,
Right.
and having to, pay out to the family. OJ
Sure.
comes to mind. It's probably the most famous one,
Right.
but it does happen, especially with people who are celebrities or who have a lot of money. But as we wrap up, this case on Aaron Hernandez, it definitely was a case that captured national attention for a number of reasons. First and foremost, he was a talented NFL player,
Of course.
who, was kind of in the prime peak of his career. He was wealthy, he was famous. Anything of this magnitude that happens to somebody like that is going to draw, a lot of news coverage and attention. I think a lot of people, when they look at Aaron Hernandez, they think of someone who thought that they were above the law, that because they had the connections, they had the money, they could kind of do what they wanted and people would insulate them, or they could keep themselves out of trouble.
Sure. And if you look at him, you can try to make a case that didn't have the best childhood, depending on what side of the story you believe with his dad and how his dad raised him.
Yeah.
You can look at the injury to his brain. Did that have an impact as he got older? And you also have to look at the fact that he received a lot of money at a very young age. And like you said, a lot of people believe that he felt he was above the law. He was above the law, above anything, because he felt like, I have the power, I have the money.
I'm all powerful.
Yeah. What are you going to do to me?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, one of the key things to this case for me is really the CTE.
Yeah.
There's no doubt he had it. It sounds like he had, one of the most severe cases
Sure.
that people had seen, especially in a person his age. You just wonder how much that contributed to, his impulsiveness, his rage, his anger. And then in turn, did it have something to do with him killing Odin Lloyd and possibly killing the other two people? He wasn't convicted of it, but
Yeah, you take all that and go back to the power thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Growing
combine
up,
it all together.
yeah, because growing up, what happened to him? Every time he got in trouble, he got off because of who he was.
We did talk about that in episode 1.
yeah,
So there could be a combination of factors, but it's hard not to think that the CTE played into it in some way. I don't know how much,
but somehow.
some way. But that's it for our episode on Aaron Hernandez. We got some voicemails. You want to check those out?
Let's hear him.
Hey guys, this is Chuck from Missouri, and I just got done listening to the Aaron Hernandez part 1. And, you guys were talking about the paparazzi, so eloquently put that. They bother these celebrities so much. I don't know if you guys knew this, but Daniel Radcliffe from the Harry Potter series once wore the same outfit for over a month every day, so their pictures would be useless. So, every day he wore that same outfit, they come out to take pictures, and they were like, oh my God, this dude's wearing the same thing he had on yesterday, the day before, whatever. So any pictures that they took within that 30-day time period, everybody would just think they were from whatever, a month ago. So that ended up not buying the paparazzi photos because he was still wearing the same outfit. And I just thought that was genius. So you guys take care, keep up the good work, and keep your own time ticking.
You know who started that? Me. I wear the same outfit when we do the Patreon videos.
Uh-huh.
So often that you had to tell me once or twice or maybe more than that, hey, Gibbs, can you wear something different, please?
Yeah, that did happen. Now, I wear the same type of shirt, same, because that's all I own, but they're different colors.
Yeah.
So that's pretty smart, though, if you think about it.
It is.
I've always said, I'd love to be rich, but I would never want to be famous. I would never want to not be able to walk in a store or just walk down the street, go to a restaurant and not have people gawking or taking pictures or, how'd you say it? Paparazzi?
Paparazzi.
Jumping out of bushes to, snap a picture of it. I would never want that.
I would not want to be the guy that jumped out of a bush at you, taking a picture. you know?
No, because I
It's not going to be
swing.
good.
So my daughter came into my bedroom one morning. This was like 3 weeks ago to wake me up because I had to take her somewhere. And she said that when she tapped me, I took a swing at her
Yeah.
in my sleep. I still was asleep.
Oh, yeah. I believe that.
Yeah. She's like, Dad, you took a swing at me. I was like, it wasn't me.
I know that one time we had to share a bed at CrimeCon for one night.
Yeah, that was bad.
I
I didn't sleep a wink.
did things to me I can't even talk about.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. My name is Lisa Armour. I do believe you pronounced that just a little wrong when you called me out on Patreon a couple months ago. It was Lisa. However, I'll let it slide. It does look a little weird when it's spelled. However, you did get the last name right, and that was awesome. So I just received a little gift in the mail, and I am stoked. Something I was not expecting, a TCAT mug, and I am over the moon excited. I want to say thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. Also let you guys know how much you helped me through the last couple of years. I just started binging about a year ago, and I'm one of those that has to start at the beginning before I can get to the end. So I have finished all of TCAT. I am in January of 2023 of Unsolved, and I cannot wait to get to criminology. You guys are awesome. I just want you to know that, and truly appreciate all the hard work and dedication you do to these and the respect you have for the families and the victims of the series that you do. I do have a couple suggestions that I will email. They actually hit very close to home for me, family, truly. And I think one would be really great for TCAT. The other would be good for Unsolved. So, again, thank you guys for all that you do. Hey, keep your head on a swivel and your own time ticking. Have a good one. Oh, and I'm from Kentucky, by the way. Go Cards, not Cats. Keep that in mind. I'm Team TCAT. Thanks, guys.
Well, that's awesome.
It is awesome. The Cardinals almost went over this last year. They were horrible.
Yeah.
They were bad. Historically bad for them. They're usually really, really good. But, you know, it's funny because some people who sign up for Patreon don't even realize that there are things that are sent to them for certain tiers.
For certain levels.
So they're like shocked when they get it in the mail, even though it says it when you sign up. They just probably don't see it.
I can't believe you got her name wrong.
Yeah, it's shocking that either you or I would
Well, it had to be you.
would get a name
I
wrong.
wouldn't have got it wrong. You know me. It was spot on, man.
All right, we had no mailbag. So that's it, buddy, for
Yeah.
another episode of True Crime All the Time. So for Mike,
And Gibby.
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
In the early hours of December 4th, 2024, CEO Brian Thompson stepped out onto the streets of Midtown Manhattan.
This assailant pulls out a weapon and starts firing at him.
We're talking about the CEO of the biggest private health insurance corporation in the world.
And the suspect
He has been identified as Luigi Nicholas Mangione.
became one of the most divisive figures in modern criminal history.
It was targeted, premeditated, and meant to sow terror.
I'm Jesse Weber, host of Luigi, produced by Law and Crime and Twist. This is more than a true crime investigation. We explore a uniquely American moment that could change the country forever.
He's awoken the people to a true issue.
Finally, maybe this would lead rich and powerful people to acknowledge the barbaric nature of our healthcare system.
Listen to Law and Crime's Luigi exclusively on Wondery Plus. You can join Wondery Plus in the Wondery app, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts.